Shalom, all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahawashi, Ba'asham Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the Great Millstone, and salutations to all you sincere Akim. Once again, it's your brother Bawan back here with another video, and what we are going to be talking about is a certain segment in the Joe Rogan podcast. Joe Rogan, the big podcast dude, the guy that is on Spotify right now. All kinds of celebrities and people come on to his podcast and discuss all manner of topics. Well, this was a interview he did with Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? Which that's a joke right there. Okay, but whereas I've done multiple videos on him because he's one of the top jakes in the scientific field right now. Especially in physics. That is a physicist. Okay, and because the major thing the major source of contention between us that are in the truth and this individual right here, which is Neil deGrasse Tyson, is the fact that he does not believe in the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahshai. I know it's crazy because this is how you know he's an Israelite. Whenever you hear him talking about, nature, about space, about physics and so on and so forth, all these scientific topics, you see the way he gushes and he fawns and he nerds out, geeks out about talking about the creation of the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahshai, but never crediting the creator. He will never acknowledge that for all the beauty and magnificence that he has seen, all over the world, even the whole universe, even the universe as a whole, that all this had to have come from a creator. And this is how, this is just as it is written for our people. They have a zeal, they have a zeal of the Most High, but not according to knowledge. But I believe rather they have some spirits, but basically they have a zeal for the Most High, but not according to knowledge. Okay, that's why you have some chicks actually that are quote unquote atheists. Okay, but the first bit that actually wants to get is going into this whole physics topic, okay, and theoretical physics and so on and so forth. And the first bit I actually wanted to get is that the beauty of the creation of the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. When you're in all these heavy scientific fields where you study, the universe, you study outer space and the movement of the planetary bodies in order to try and figure out, just how big the universe is and the galaxies and so on and so forth, that is a magnificent thing right there. Imagine looking through the telescopes, man, and seeing, the galaxy that the Most High created, the universe the Most High created, seeing outer space in all of its beauty, But here you are, still, man, still being an atheist and still refusing to credit the beauty that you see, the magnificence to the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. But of course, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. This is just me sidetracking a little bit because back when I was still younger, I was still coming up in secondary school. I was huge into cosmology, the study of the outer space. I was huge into that, because all that's the world outside of our planet, the solar system, the galaxy, to the universe, it fascinated me. Okay, the depths of the magnificence of the Most High's creations. How here it is. So this is the book of Romans 11 verse 33. Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of the Most High Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. How unsearchable are his judgments and his ways past finding out. So now let's play the video because you will see what we are talking about. Because here, if you listen to this video, Neil deGrasse Tyson was giving you the breakdown on, quote unquote, Africa. And the reason why I'm putting the so-called Africa in quotes is because when he talks about Africa, okay, this is something you have to understand. When people in the world talk about Africa, they are not talking about the Africans. They're not talking about Hamites. They are talking about Jakes scattered in Africa. Okay, the same thing with Europe, the same thing with the Americas, the same thing with Asia as well. You notice that a lot of the, more popular or the legendary, a lot of the legendary people scattered all across these different lands, they are all Jake, the kings of Europe, right? Going back to the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, with the Byzantine Empire, with the Moors, so on and so forth. Those are all Jakes, Most of for the most part in Japan, the same thing. A lot of the legendary Japanese samurai and warriors, a lot of the legendary Asian warriors and so on and so forth. For the most part, of course, you have to use the spirit to try the spirit. They are all jake, okay. So when we talk about Africa, especially, a lot of the a lot of the feats, okay, a lot of the legacy, the history of Africa goes back to our people, the Israelites, okay, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. You see, when people talk about the greatness of Africa, okay, and all the things that was achieved in Africa, case in point, the pyramids of Egypt that was built up by Jake, okay, and a lot of the things that a lot of the history and the legacy that is in Africa. That's majority Jake. Okay, they are people that were scattered in Africa, that were refugees in Africa during the time of the Babylonian captivity when Jake went to Egypt and other parts of Africa, right? And most especially during the Greco-Roman captivity. Okay, 70 AD. Now let's play this video so you can get what I'm talking about. Whenever people talk about Africa and Africans and how they are thriving and you know doing all these amazing things, it's not Africans, okay? It's Israelites that have been scattered in Africa. The title of this video will be "For Jacob is the former of all things." For the portion of our people, the Israelites, is not the same as these other nations because we are the former of all things. And without further ado,
let me leave you with some thoughts here. Okay. There's a section here on race and color, which is another thing with the variation of what we have in the world. Just a point I want to make. When European anthropologists started running through Africa and started describing what they saw, their urge was to say, everyone in Africa is this thing, and they have dark skin, woolly hair, and that is a thing. And they called it a race, and they called it the Negroes, okay? And this is our attempt to classify into few categories something that might actually, in real life, be on a spectrum. We know that the human species began in Africa, and everybody who populates everywhere else in the world came out of Africa to do that.
And let me just say this as well. Whenever you hear me say Africa, just substitute it for Jacob, okay, for Jake, for the Israelites, because it wasn't Africans that that are the originators of all the other nations and all the other races. Rather, it was Jake because Noah was a son of Adam, a son of the righteous, which made him an Israelite. Okay, it was the sons of Adam, which are the sons of the righteous, which in this time they are the Israelites as well. So now what I want to do is, before I continue playing this video, let me just get this precept out of the way. As it is written, for the portion of Jacob is not the same. Let me just bring that. Now where is it? Where is it? For is the former of all things. Here it is. So this is the book of Jeremiah 51 verse 19. The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. Yahweh of hosts is his name. Now let's continue playing the video, and you will hear more of what he has to say. Now whenever you hear Africans, once again, substitute it for Jake, because it was Jake that was doing all these things for the world, okay, not the Africans. Jake is the originator of all the different races that you see on the earth through Noah. Okay, let's continue on. Jake is the one that has the most quote unquote genetic diversity, but let's continue on.
What that tells you is that the genetic diversity within Africa, as the origin of our species, is greater than it is between any other two people anywhere else in the world. But because the anthropologists were not thinking genetic diversity, they're thinking skin color. They put them all in one bin. But if you have the most genetic diversity, then in practically every way humans vary, you would find the extreme of that in the African continent. Where would you find the tallest people in the world? Watusi tribe of Africa. How about the shortest people in the world?
Pygmies.
The pygmies. Not even that far.
Let me see this. Let me just see this at all. Those the Watusi and the Pygmies, those are Hamites, but it does not change the fact that they all came from the same common ancestor, which is Noah, right? You go back to the flood story. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and they populated the whole world, and all the races that you see today, all the peoples that you see today, all come from those 3 men. Okay.
Way.
Right.
Geographically, they have the same skin color, so the Europeans said these are one group of people, one race. Where might you find the slowest people in the world? Well, no one looks for them. Where would you find? There's no races to find the slowest people. How about the fastest people? Africa. Okay? People of African descent have dominated the long distance as well as the sprint. 2 completely different physical abilities. Oh, but they're all dark-skinned people. They're all Negroes. Okay? Where would you likely find the dumbest person in the world? Africa. How about the smartest person in the world? Africa.
How about the Egyptians?
The Europeans did not look for people smarter than they were. Okay? And to this day, where they find evidence where that might have been the case, you have people saying aliens did it. Egypt is, of course, in Africa.
Yeah.
A brilliant civilization. Oh my gosh. While Europeans were still either disemboweling heretics or whatever the hell they were doing, I was even before that, thousands of years ago. So my point is, if you don't look for it and you don't find it and you're going to create a map of humans of the world, you're going to put yourself at the top. That's what you're going to do. And you're going to write things like this. Who do you want to hear from? Thomas Jefferson or Francis Galton?
Jefferson.
Jefferson, 1785. Speaking of the Negroes, comparing them by their faculties of memory, reason, and imagination, it appears to me that in memory, they are equal to the whites. In reason, much inferior, as I think one could scarcely be found capable of tracing and comprehending the investigations of Euclid. And in imagination, they are dull, tasteless, and anomalous.
What is Euclid?
I honestly don't know how many Euclid-fluent white people Jefferson knew in the original American colonies. Euclid invented geometry. Okay, Euclidean geometry is ancient Greece. And his books still exist to this day. So he's saying the black slaves don't know Euclid, can't figure out Euclid.
Well, they haven't been educated.
And you can get the whole gist of the matter from there. Basically, you have the accomplishments of our people being credited to Africans because our people did all those things while they were scattered in Africa. Okay, but whenever Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about the Africans, what he's actually talking about is Jake. Okay, so here's one of the few times where this dude right here is making a good point, but at the end of the day, you still have to do a little bit of deeper research into it, and you'll find out that it's not the Africans actually, but it's Jake, okay, the Israelites, because as it is written, and now we'll get some precepts, as it is written, you are the salt of the earth, okay. We've already gotten the first one that we needed, which is you are the former, that people are the former of all things, okay, including the originators of of all the races and the nations that you see on the earth, and even more so, of all the innovations, the inspiration for the ingenuity, the different technologies that you see right now majority of them were made, okay, and invented by Jake, okay, our people, the Israelites. While the ones that made Africa great, brothers always go into this, but while the ones that made Africa great are the ones that made Europe great, while the ones that made America, Babylon the Great, but the ones that made Babylon the Great, it's ironic as it sounds, but the ones that made our prison and our oppression. That just shows you how, great our people are. As I was saying, were the ones that made all these different nations and civilizations great. The reason why the Greco-Roman Empire was so great was because they had Jake in them as well. Aristotle was a Jake, Socrates for the most part, that Socrates also Jake, okay. They had a lot of Jake that was making they had a Jake that made them great. Same thing with Persia, same thing with Babylon. You have to remember that Daniel was one of the chief advisors for the Babylonian and the Persian Empire. Okay, so it was Jake that was fueling all these different empires and making them great because this is the book of Matthew 5, verse 13. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. And you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, the scattered Israelites that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, you are that salt, you are that light, okay? You are the city on the hill. And our people have that legacy of turning everything that we put our hands on into gold, okay? Because we are the chosen people, right? The peculiar people of the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And you know what the scriptures say, I wanted to say everybody that blesses us will be blessed and everybody that curses us will be cursed, but that's not what I was thinking about. Basically, the Most High always basically used us to make all these nations great, okay? And all these people great as well. So yeah, I think that's all I've gotten everything I want to get. So this wasn't going to be a long video, just going into our people being the true former of all things, not Africans. Okay, it wasn't no damn Hamites, it was Jake, and of course they will not give us that reverence. But with that, now end the video right here. All praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh, Ba'asham Rachak Wadash, Wa Abad Babal, and through the Spirit I hope you Akiam and your acquires are edified. Shalom.